Richard Tice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. So the Chinese Communist regime, they sanction members of this House. They spy on members of this House. They carry out more cyber attacks than any other country. And the Minister admits that they are a national security threat. And yet the government thinks it's a good idea to kowtow to the Beijing bullies and allow this mega embassy. If it's in the national economic interest, Minister, could the Minister confirm that some British steel might be used in this Chinese embassy? And can he guarantee that this is in our national security interest completely for British citizens?
Minister.
Well, I congratulate the honourable gentleman on getting the clip that he no doubt will be posting on social media in the not too distant future, and that is up to him. I mean, the honourable gentleman seems to operate in a world that is quite selective in terms of some of the decisions that it seeks to make. I looked over to him earlier when I referenced the requirement for cooperation on areas like organised immigration crime. I don't know whether he thinks that's a good thing. I don't know whether he or his party have a policy about whether, given the concerns that are shared across this House, we should be engaging with China on matters relating to immigration. As part of the work to stop the small boat crossings across the Channel, he will understand, I hope, that it is, of course, necessary to engage with our near neighbours, but it is also necessary to engage internationally. I'm not clear whether he thinks that's a good thing, and I'm not clear whether he thinks that we should engage with China on those matters. What I am clear about is that this government will engage pragmatically, do the right thing, secure the economic opportunities, but fundamentally will always make sure that we will underpin our national security. And in terms of his point about British steel, that is a fair one. This government will always want to support UK-based manufacturers and UK-based industry. So let's end on a point of consensus. Let's always look for opportunities to buy British.
I'm very hopeful that we can find a point of consensus, that questions need to be shorter, answers need to be shorter. I intend to keep the Minister here until all members have been satisfied this afternoon, but we do need to speed up. Mark Francois.
There's a pattern of behaviour here. The failure to act meaningfully over Jimmy Lai, the mysterious collapse of the Chinese spy case, and now this abject national humiliation. Let's call this what it is. This is appeasement of communist China. For economic gain. We tried that in the 1930s, and look where that got us. Why is this Labour government kowtowing to China, a communist regime that imprisons 1 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps for having the temerity to believe in God?
Well, in one sense, I can agree with the right honourable gentleman that there is a pattern of behaviour. He's right about that. The pattern of behaviour is doing the right thing and making sure that we safeguard our national security. And he might roll his eyes, but he was a minister in the previous government. He's served in this House for a number of years. He knows that under his Conservative government there was a complete lack of consistency with regard to our policy for China. Now, this is a significant geostrategic challenge, and in the end, government has to make decisions. It has to have a clear-eyed policy, but anyone who thinks that we shouldn't be engaging with China, I think, is naive. He uses the language that he does, which I think is inappropriate and unhelpful and inaccurate. I've made the point about consolidation, I've made the point about the national security advantages, and I'll make the point about this government's commitment to securing our national interest. Let me just say one final thing to him. He's right to raise the case of Jimmy Lai. He knows the government's clear commitment that Jimmy Lai should be released immediately.
Barclay.
Does the Minister believe that the approval of this mega Chinese embassy makes the British people safer?
Minister.
Well, the right honourable gentleman is very experienced from his own time in government, and he will know that difficult decisions have to be made. But it is my judgment, ultimately, this is the right way to proceed, that we do have to engage with China for the reasons that I've explained, but ultimately, nothing will prevent this government from ensuring our national security. And that's why we've progressed this proposal incredibly carefully, and that's why we've made sure that we've got the right mitigations in place.
Colin Lockhart.
Deputy Speaker, last week I made it clear that any hostile intelligence service would struggle to find a better location for espionage than the now approved mega Chinese embassy. What assessment has now been made of the risk that this site could be used for surveillance, intimidation or coercion of critics of the oppressive communist regime living in the UK, and how the government justify a decision that is both shameful and reckless in the disregard for national security?
Well, I'm grateful to her for the points that she's made, but I would just say to her, of course, we're already dealing with those challenges. There are some honourable members who seem to think that we don't have to mitigate and manage those risks at the moment. We do. There are those, and it's an entirely reasonable position if people want to take it, who think that the situation could get worse with the agreement of this embassy. But as I've tried to explain, because of the mitigations that we have put in place and because of the consolidation of the diplomatic estate, there are clear national security advantages as a consequence of this proposal. She doesn't perhaps agree now, but I hope she understands that the government takes these matters incredibly seriously and will do everything that we can to safeguard our national security.
Sir Desmond Swain.
China is notoriously transactional in its international relations. So what do we get in return?
Well, I always listen very carefully to the Right Honourable Gentleman, not least because I seem to remember that he was the PPS to the then Prime Minister Lord Cameron, when the then government had quite a different relationship with China to the one that we have now. He will remember that very well, as do I. So whilst I'm grateful for his advice, I hope that he will perhaps have borne in mind the points I made about the consistency of the previous government, including the one he served in.
Esther McVeigh.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In light of what you said, I do hope you see this as a short question, and I do hope I get a short answer. Minister, do the security services have any concerns at all about the proposed new super Chinese embassy? Yes or no?
Minister.
The Right Honourable Lady has seen the letter that's been published today by the Director Generals. I don't know how much time the Right Honourable Lady thinks about matters relating to national security or understands the nature of the threat. Not at all. I'm seeking to explain to her that this government, like the last government, manage a range of national security risks. That will be the case whatever decision was taken around this proposal.
Dr. Luke Evans.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm going to ask again. Does this make the British public safer? Yes or no?
Minister.
Fundamentally, government is there to make the British people safer. And for the reasons I've explained, I'm confident that from a national security perspective, this is the right decision.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Let us be in no doubt about the threat China poses. MI5 has warned that Chinese intelligence is actively trying to disrupt our democracy. Bounties have been placed on the heads of Hong Kong campaigners. Members of this House have been directly spied on by China. China actively supports Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and China is infiltrating universities and businesses to acquire sensitive technology, as well as stealing it directly. Yet this government has failed again and again to take the action needed. This government failed to place China in the enhanced tier of the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme. This government failed to properly support the case against two men accused of spying for China on MPs in this House. And now they have shamefully approved plans for a Chinese super embassy. Despite everything China has done on our soil, China has been rewarded with exactly what they want, a super embassy that will be a base for espionage, not just in the UK, but likely across Europe as well. The government has capitulated to Chinese demands. The Prime Minister himself said to President Xi at the G20 in November 2024, and I quote, "You raised the Chinese embassy building in London when we spoke on the telephone. We have since taken action by calling in that application." In other words, the Prime Minister did precisely what President Xi told him to do, and then he faithfully reported back afterwards. This decision has serious implications, Last week, The Telegraph published plans showing 208 secret rooms and a hidden chamber just 1 metre from critical data cables. Our economy depends on those cables, so what assurance can the Minister give that those cables will be secure from Chinese interference? Now, in paragraph 97 of his decision notice, the Secretary of State who made the decision admits that he had not himself even seen unredacted plans before making his decision. So how can he possibly have assessed the risk himself as the decision maker without having seen those plans? The Secretary of State also admits at paragraph 13 that he did not follow our suggestion to hold sections 321 closed hearings to take evidence. Once again, how could the Secretary of State possibly have taken this decision in an informed way without having personally assessed the risk? And, Madam Deputy Speaker, it gets worse because paragraph 8.63 onwards of the Inspector's report admits that China can legally refuse to allow UK authorities to inspect the building during or after construction. So we're going to have no idea what they're actually building in there in any event. Now, the Minister references the ISC. He says that someone in government has seen unredacted plans, although we know that was not the decision-maker, the Secretary of State. So can I ask, have the ISC seen those unredacted plans? Because it has been suggested to me that they have not seen those unredacted plans. The ISC say the risks can be mitigated, but mere mitigation is not enough. Mitigation entails only a partial exclusion of risk, and nothing is said about how to manage future developments in China's capabilities, developments we cannot anticipate today. The ISC also says, and the Minister for some reason forgot to quote this, but they also say the government process was not robust enough. They say it lacked clarity on national security. The ISC say the key reports lack the necessary detail. And the ISC said the government does not have the dexterity required to handle China. Does the Minister accept those elements of the ISC report? And others share those concerns. A US government source was recently quoted saying the UK had, quote, downplayed the risks. The White House last week was reported to be, quote, deeply concerned. And the US House China Committee Chair says that he opposes these plans on the grounds Americans' data may be at risk. Does the Minister agree with our American allies? Madam Deputy Speaker, it is clear this decision is timed shortly before a planned trip by the Prime Minister to China. He apparently intends to seek some kind of economic deal with China in order to fix the mess he and the Chancellor have created here, with jobs down and unemployment up since the election. From its timing and from President Xi's clear demands, this planning consent appears linked to the Prime Minister's imminent visit and linked to the economic deal. It seems clear to me that they are trading national security for economic links, and this is a shameless capitulation to China's demands. China is spying on us, it is subverting our democracy, it is repressing people on our soil, and it is stealing our technology. Isn't the truth this? In those circumstances, giving them what they want is simply the wrong thing to do.
Before I call the Minister, can I gently remind shadow ministers and spokesmen that there is a time limit which the honourable gentleman exceeded somewhat. Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I listened very carefully to what the Shadow Home Secretary had to say. There was a glaring gap in his analysis, and he didn't seem to want to have to say anything about the level of challenge that we inherited from the previous government in terms of the lay-down of the diplomatic estate. He didn't want to accept that, as with other countries, there is a degree of risk which has to be managed. And I explained very carefully and made sure that he had the opportunity to come in this morning for a briefing. And I was at pains to stress in my opening remarks that whilst, of course, balanced views have to be taken about these things, there are national security advantages to the proposals that have been agreed. Now, I know that he and honourable members opposite don't want to agree with that, but I think it is important that we debate the right honourable gentleman says it's nonsense. No, he's absolutely entitled to his opinion, as is this government, and I hope that he takes the opportunity to look very carefully at what the Director Generals of MI5 and GCHQ have to say. I also say to the right honourable gentleman, and to some but not all members opposite, that actually this is also a moment, hopefully, where we could have discussed these things in a sort of sensible and reasonable way, and that's how we should approach matters relating to national security. But also, I don't think it would be such a bad thing for a bit of humility from some members opposite. Not least because the attack that we heard from the Shadow Home Secretary, the attack that other honourable members have already engaged with, might have actually sort of landed a bit fairer and a bit truer if they hadn't spent 14 years in government, flitting between hot and cold, neither consistent nor credible, on what is, after all, one of the most complex geopolitical challenges that we face. The party opposite went from golden age to ice age, from welcoming China with open arms to choosing to disengage almost entirely. And that's with the world's largest nation, who, along with Hong Kong, are our second largest trading partner. Now, it's convenient for some members opposite to forget that it was, of course, Boris Johnson, as Conservative Foreign Secretary in 2018, who granted consent for the Royal Mint site to be used as diplomatic premises. He was proud, and I quote, to welcome the fact that this is China's largest overseas diplomatic investment, the Conservative Foreign Secretary. In recent times, of course, we've seen Conservative MPs U-turn on the original position of their government and take a different approach. This government will ensure that the approach that we will take will be underpinned by ensuring that we engage consistently and pragmatically with China, but we will do so in a way that absolutely ensures our national security. The House will have heard the important contributions that have been made by the ISC and the conclusion that they have drawn. The House, the country, will have heard the comments that we've seen from the Director Generals. These are important contributions. Nobody should underestimate how seriously government has taken this matter. We've engaged with it incredibly closely. The intelligence and security agencies have been involved with this process from the outset. I can give an assurance to those who have doubts that we will, of course, continue to monitor this process very carefully, but we believe that this is the right judgment